the Zerg players, they seem to be struggling against it. I'm really curious to see what Serral is going to bring out if we are going to be seeing a build like that from Cure here, and I'm fully expecting we're going to see it at least in a few of the games.
Yeah, it's the newest development. It's the newest thing you can really bring out. If you look at some of their more recent games online, you wouldn't have seen as much of that battle mech, but it was a hot topic leading directly into EWC. It has proven to continue to be a hot topic. Many Zerg players having frustrations against that style of play in Serral. I don't think he's any different as far as maybe it's a frustrating style. I just think he's different as far as how good he is still against it.
Well, here we go. Game number 1 in this best of 7 semifinals. We find ourselves on Ultralove, and in the top right-hand corner, he is Serral. Widely considered to be the greatest StarCraft 2 player of all time. Can he overcome this Terran opponent?
And in the bottom left, as the blue Terran for Team Liquid, he is Cure. Always on the edge of being called the greatest Terran in StarCraft 2 in recent years. Unfortunately beat out by some of the other names such as Maru. But once again in Riyadh, it seems to be the lucky place for Cure. And should he beat Serral on this big stage, I think that discussion will have to be had who actually comes out on top in the year 2025 as far as the world's greatest Terran. We're starting things off with a 1-Rax expand and a regular hatch gas pool, so nothing too interesting yet on Ultralove. But you brought up the maps, you know, how big of a series this is, how many maps you're going to have to actually win over the favorite that is Serral. I will say that at least right now we do have more of a Terran favored overall map pool. It was similar last year, but that has been the case for a couple of months at this point, and Cure was still unable to defeat Serral in a reliable way anyway. He was able to get at least one game in their last best of 7.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be a tough battle here for Cure, but I believe he does certainly have a shot. I feel like Cure is one of those players that we don't talk about all too often as StarCraft 2 casters, as content creators, but he's always been there and he's always been ranked amongst the very best in the world. Always just barely missing that final step, right? And, well, becoming a world champion would certainly allow him to be ranked amongst the greatest players that we have ever had. And honestly, at this point, it feels rightfully so. He's been so good for so many years. Starting off, though, with a very normal strategy so far. Serral's going to attack with the drone, but of course, that's just to try and shoo that Reaper away for the time being as he starts up a quick third hatchery here.
Yeah, last time they played, I mean, it was overall very normal TVZ. There were a couple of change-ups. You know, Serral to go for a pool first, for instance, and I think we're talking a lot about the battle mech, which I think will be the biggest change-up that we see. But as far as the third CC coming down here for Cure, I mean, this could be the expectation for actually all of the games, but I think the twists will be coming in. And then we might actually have Cure attempt something like a 2-Rax opener into that 2-on-1, into a 2-base push. He did attempt that before as well, just to make sure you have the variety, because really, you look at a regular game of TVZ, say nothing happens for the first 8 minutes, and most people are going to be like, yeah, well, Serral wins that one, so sorry about that, even if you had your own perfect macro 8-minute game. So I do think you need to try and do it little something, you know, whether it's just like hide a scout, get a couple of drones with the Hellions. It's got to happen, though.
Absolutely. So far, Cure is opening up triple command center 1-1-1. So a barracks, a factory, and then a starport. This has been the gold standard for years now, but just the existence of Battle Mech does force the Zerg usually to make a couple of changes anyway, right? So even though maybe this is the standard, it might actually be slightly better since a lot of the Zerg players are just a bit concerned dealing with that Cyclone opener. So far though, Serral not really looking to make any real adjustments. Not really getting a faster Roach Warren. We, for example, saw Rogue go into a really quick lair. This is just good old Zergling speed, just queens and drones. And we do see a Roach Warren, but I mean, this is honestly the norm right now, right? It's good against bio, it's good against mech. You can't really go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is what we can expect from Serral's side of things. Cure is very much so going for bio, by the way, guys. Double Engineering Bay coming down, so a very greedy opener. I feel like we're going to see an 8-Rax on this, actually. Very fast upgrades, very aggressive, but it is going to be Hellion Banshee to start things off, so we'll just hold off on that. But for Serral's side, absolutely. The Roach Warren is going to help again. It works against bio. It helps you out against the initial phases of mech, 100%. And then it also is just one of the... Yeah, Stim is not still on the way, but yeah, 1-1 definitely is. So there is Serral's defensive Roach macro. This is, it's so tight, it's so clean, that even if Serral does take an unordinary amount of damage in the early game, he still manages to come out on top with super fast, just droning up to 80, getting that very fast hive. And against an 8-Rax potential, you know, you can get those Vipers, and he does very well against it. Basically against anything that a 3cc Terran can throw out him.
Absolutely. The reasoning why an 8-Rax is so powerful on this map is because of the base layouts. So the 4th hatchery for Serral will probably be taken to the right, and it's in a direct line to the 3rd base of the Terran. Serral, though, okay, opting to go for the one in the corner. That is a little unorthodox on the map. It's interesting to see because it is a relatively easy position for the Terran to attack into, but Serral apparently not too concerned. Maybe he's expecting the build that you were talking about as well, right? Maybe he's putting his opponent also on an 8-Rax. Yeah,
well, if there's an 8-Rax, generally you want to direct yourself not just to a 4th base, any which way that it is, right? But to a 4th base that kind of is centralized to the Zerg, right? That's why you expand that way. It's still central to your production line. And if you defend that, then you defend every other base. But if the 8-Rax wants to go from this 3rd command center to that triangle 3rd of Serral, for instance, well, there is no 4th base there. But there is also not as much creep spread, right? So that would be the fear of doing this, I would suspect, is that maybe Kira can still get past these bridges, get on the high ground of, again, that triangle 3rd, and still really, you know, be quite scary against Serral natural and main base even, actually. But I will say the 4th base won't necessarily be maybe the target. We'll have to see how Kira plays this out, how he wants to actually direct his army movement now that the 4th base is in the corner.
I don't believe Kure saw the base in the top left, right? Losing that Banshee is a bit unfortunate. Wow, yeah. No, it was just barely out of vision, so that is unlucky for him. Obviously, he can already sort of see the direction of the creep moving around, and maybe that will give him a little bit of info. Serral, by the way, is starting off with Roaches, but he is researching melee upgrades, and I'm expecting a Baneling speed upgrade too as soon as that Baneling nest is done. Hive underway. I mean, this is a very passive early game for Terran versus Zerg compared to the super action-packed games that we've seen throughout the tournament so far.
I feel like if you're in the player's seat, though, this actually is on a knife's edge. Like, yes. I feel like they kind of understand each other's goals here. This is not something where you're trying to get a lot of damage with the first Hellions or the first 16 Marines, or, you know, you're afraid of the Roaches coming across the map. On the Terran side, you're thinking about this 8-Rax attack and how the Terran player is going to be able to deliver the killing blow, and how the Zerg player obviously is going to try and deny that. So, yeah, a little bit of action against the creep spread right now, but really eyes are set on that main push. Serral having the time to get there, but still having to squeeze everything in this very limited amount of time. The drones, the upgrades, the technology, the positioning, the creep spread. It is difficult, but he is one of the best at it.
Yeah, I do kind of feel, though, that this is kind of playing into Serral's strength. He's completely, well, unbothered so far in the first 7-8 minutes of this game. Really not a lot of aggression for him to deal with. And it's allowing him to now set up this perfect defense. I think he's got a good read on the game. We've got ourselves Vipers coming up as well. Blinding Clouds are big. You're not yet in a position really to be losing units, mostly just trying to clear out some of that creep here from the opponent. The real question is, will Serral have enough units to defend the first big attack here coming out of Kure? And Kure is just about ready to get going.
Excellent timing on the Ling run by. The army is ready to go, as you just pointed out. Kure ready to go past those bridges. That would be the first contest point a lot of the times, but Serral not going to go for it, instead waiting for those Lings to maybe cause a problem where Kure has to decide, do I pull back or not? Ling's trying to go into the natural. Kure has some reinforcements, looking to block that, but that is a lot of Lings. The reinforcements very quick to pulling back. He makes sure that the main army is safe around those bridges, and the Ling run by so far not finding a ton of success, but then goes to the 3rd base where the reinforcements were not, and that's where you find the SCVs. This is a similar game actually to what they played previously. Kure is willing to let go of an okay amount of economy if that army is still as strong as it looks on the forward position.
Keep in mind that this base that Kure is attacking in the meantime on the other side of the map is really not that important for Serral. This is not his 4th, this is his 5th. There's no mining happening here at all. There's a little bit of larva generation, but that's about it. He is going to roll in with some of the Banelings, though. Kure not quite paying attention. Blinding Clouds do go down on top of the siege tanks, too. Banelings are starting to roll through, and Serral so far is making this look very straightforward. Even if that hatchery at the 5th goes down, he doesn't really care. He's got full mining in the top left, and I don't think Kure has seen it.
Yeah, and it's taking so long to actually do it. 2-2 is done for Kier with the super fast upgrades, but they don't seem to be really helping as much as one would hope in these main engagements. Serral just steadily chipping away at the supply, making sure as well that he has the path to retreat. There's no opportunity for Kier to go, okay, you're out of banelings, let me run after you. Serral, very, very methodical with how he's dealing with this, and Kier having to pull back entirely is a terrible sign.
I wonder if Serral's going to go into like an Ultra Cavern from here. That's been quite popular over the last few months. Roaches into Lingbane, into Ultras is certainly a viable choice. For now, though, he's just sitting around on the units that he's got and trying to build up his economy even more. He knows fully well that Kier's eco is not nearly as big as his, so he's really not in a rush. Creep spread still looking really solid here as well in the top left. Okay, finally we're running in. He wants to get a kill on the hedge, but can't get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So low like that. Just a couple of Marauder shots would have gotten it. But Serral is in position, even finding this drop. Needs to once again pick up. It is going to be protected by SimCity and a tank. But Kier, he was 3cc 8 racks, guys. This is very difficult to come out of, especially if you really did almost 0 damage. I mean, Serral didn't lose the hatchery, as you were pointing out, wasn't the most important one. He didn't lose drones. He didn't lose a significant amount of army. He has the technology. He has the expansions. He's going to have the map control. There's the Ultralove Cavern as well. Kier basically has one more shot, I would say, which is that it is the max out 3-3 timing. Maybe he does add on a 4th commander. Yep, there you go. Just because you are going to get maxed out, you do have those minerals. But there's other problems of trying to play this type of game out for the Terran. A little bit of an engagement on the left side. It looks like this is going to be forced back. Here, not really finding any wiggle room.
Nope, and so far Serral has firm control on it. Now he realizes that indeed this is where the 4th base was located. Maybe he was hoping that the worker count over at the 5th that he did see was the only amount of workers there that Serral had, but nope. This is a Zerg player at pretty much the perfect economy. He's getting a safety spire, he's getting the chitinous plating upgrade, that's armor for Ultralisks. All of this is going really well for Serral, but you're absolutely right. There's still one big opportunity here for Kier. Kier never really added on a lot of economy. He only has 62 supply dedicated to workers, and that means that this attack that's moving across the map right now is still capable of winning the game for him. If this also gets shut down, I wonder if retreating here is the right move. If this also gets shut down, Serral will just very rapidly outgrow him.
Yeah, which, you know, this is what he's dangerously close to doing as we are speaking. Serral still shy of some very important upgrades, and Kier is maxed out, trying to push across the map. His 3-3 is finishing. This is another very important moment, really Kier's chance to actually take this game, but Serral has had the time to get these upgrades going. He might be able to buy more time for them to actually finish, and he's also bought some time to kind of, you know, understand that this is going to be the goal of the Terran. How do I approach this? So he's kind of got that already under lock, and it looks like a big surround's already coming in here. Yeah, from 3 different angles, Serral rolls on in with Banelings, blinding clouds as well. Continues after the push. Kier behind those bridges, but Kier keeping a lot of army alive, sees the opportunity, goes after the Ravagers.
At this point, Serral's reinforcing this with more Zerglings, but even more importantly, more Ultralisks. They take a long time to hatch, but they are obviously hard to counter for the Terran at this point in time. No Liberators, no Ghosts, it's just pure Marine Marauder Medevac, and finally, he gets a hatchery kill, but it feels like it's a little too late. Then again, though, Kier did build up a 4th command center on the back of this, and he is going to be able to secure it, assuming this pesky little Zergling gets denied.
Yeah, assuming that happens, yeah. So a 4th command center is going to keep him obviously alive and actually pumping out this army. Serral is going to go for another engagement, see if this one goes a little bit better. Another Blinding Cloud taking out the tank, but the Viper also died for it. Banelings off of creep, trying to roll into the Marauders. Looks like they've taken out enough of the front line. That Kier supply dips a little too low. He might just be forced to retreat here, especially because the Ultras are finally out. Another dynamic to this engagement, and Kier, he has once again been pushed entirely back as Serral sits comfortably on almost 7 bases.
Absolute textbook here from Serral across the board. Liberators are now out, but he already built up a Spire. He still has Corrosive Bowels available, but Serral has an answer for everything that Kier has thrown to him so far in this game. I think it's important, though, for Serral to not let Kier mine too much more. I mean, he needs to start getting at least a little bit of damage done across the board. Planetary Fortress didn't start up yet. I mean, Kier barely has the resources to produce army, let alone put up static defense like it, but yeah, I mean, as long as he denies a 5th base, right? As long as Kier doesn't get completely out of control, or maybe he flies his main command center around, Serral is still going to be able to just play this very slowly. he's not really in a hurry. I feel like that's a bit of a theme in a lot of games this weekend, or not even this weekend, this week. He's just not really in a rush to get the games over with. He's more than happy to play it out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to note as well. Some other Zerg players might have said, yeah, you got pushed back, you're clearly in a desperate position, but let me just max out and then have another remax, probably very safely, and then I'm going to eventually kill you, which, here we go, Serral might just do right now. Planetary not going to help out. Fungal coming in on the top side as well. It looks like this will be a little bit too much to actually kill the army, but the Planetary, would-be Planetary, does go down.
He's looking for more fungal growths, though. He's faking a bit of a retreat while even getting Neural Parasite and all the other upgrades as well on the back of this. Serral is now pushing through the Liberation Circles. Corrosive Balls, they're going to get shut down. And I mean, Cure now sitting on a very small economy compared to what Serral has. And Serral decides to, yeah, just take it slowly. I mean, we're playing a best of 7. We have already seen in the past that his heart rate doesn't go up too much. Well, in this particular series, it has gone up. But, I mean, this is still looking absolutely phenomenal here for Serral.
Yeah,
I don't think he really could have dreamed up a better game.
Yeah, this was textbook. I mean, and you were pointing out just how calm he was, you know? He didn't just go for the Remax. He had all these upgrades. He had the Spire in case he needed it. He had Neural Parasite in case he needed it. And he did it. Yeah, Cure just not able to really deliver any damage with the first 8 racks push. The second one had a little bit of promise, but then that was kind of an illusion. The Remax came through, and Serral was totally fine. He had already taken 2 extra bases to the right side anyway. In general, I would say most Zerg players look at a game from Serral's point of view against what Cure did, and they would say that's still terrifying. That 8 racks that does that and pushes across this map is absolutely terrifying, but Serral just makes it look like another day in the office.
Absolutely. I feel like a key play in this particular game was Cure losing that Banshee in the top left-hand corner, while simultaneously just not barely scouting the 4th. So ultimately, his big first attack went across the map, but even if he would have killed the Hedge, I think Serral would have been okay with it, right? Like, he had more expansions. He could send those drones to another location to mine. I mean, it would have been obviously better than not killing the hatchery there for Cure, but that entire attack, I think it should have gone to the top left rather than through the center. Yeah,
that's the problem, though, right? Like, Cure, he did not see that the 4th hatch was there. He couldn't make an informed decision. He moves across the map, and he sees a quote-unquote 4th base that has very little creep spread and even very little mining, and goes, okay, that's not it. That's not where it was. But you've already committed to that angle of attack. You can't just pick up everything and move over to the left. That's actually much worse. So, yeah, that did start things off. Not in Cure's favor, 100%.
Alrighty, well, we are loading up into the second game of this best of 7 semifinals match. Find ourselves on Incorporeal. And spawning right here in the bottom right-hand corner, currently 1-0 up, we have Serral, representing Basilisk.
And in the top left, Team Liquid's last hope for the StarCraft 2 tournament, he is Cure.
A lot of eyes were on Clem for Team Liquid for this particular tournament. Clem got eliminated, but Cure is still here and fighting. I think he's going to have to switch it up a little bit in the second game of the series, giving Serral so much room to just play the macro game and really just play that approach that he practices over and over and over again. I don't think it is the best style to go. I mean, it's a nice, if you do get the win, right, it feels amazing. And suddenly this entire series gets flipped upside down, but Serral making it look, yeah, exactly the way he's practiced it. It kind of feels like a lot of StarCraft players like to play against like the very easy AI as they're just playing the macro runs, and that was a macro game and a half right there for Serral. In like the first 10 minutes, he got to do whatever he liked, and it worked out perfectly for him.
Obviously, people can take that in a very negative way, like you're calling Cure easy AI or something.
No,
but I compare it all the time. You know, it's just if you want to learn a build order and you want to do it as perfectly as you possibly can, you do it against someone who doesn't really retaliate. And even though Cure was doing a bunch of other, you know, he was doing his own amazing macro and Serral wasn't retaliating against him, it's kind of this idea that, like, well, at the end of the day, you know, Serral is the scarier player in a game where nothing happens pre-8 minutes, even against something that every other Zerg player would be like, oh, I'm terrified, like I mess up against it, I don't nearly have like the right drones before it comes over. You know, he makes it look easy, but many other Zerg players would say that Cure had a good chance right there.
Yeah.
But you're right, he's got to change things up, I think. You know, one thing that I've already seen in this best of 7 compared to the last one, which was online, is that Cure has been able to get different maps So, you know, these are actually, like, I guess 2 out of the 6. I'm doing my math correctly. Well, 9 overall. That he hasn't actually played against Serral in a while. That didn't affect it positively in the first game. Maybe here on Incorporeal, it will affect Kier positively because he hasn't lost on this map against Serral in a while. I'm curious as what Kier's exact build is going to be. 3CC to start things off, sure, but what else beyond that?
I feel like in general in this matchup, it is also very much so up to the Terran player to try and disrupt the Zerg in any way possible. Because if you let the Zerg macro up, they can just really use that larva mechanic and the drone mechanic to their advantage and just get such a huge income. Now, I like this quite a bit from Kier. We don't see it all too often anymore, where the SCV actually patrols around and tries to block the third for a long time. Kier bringing it back here, going SCV Scout into a Reaper. In the meantime, though, we also have a group of Zerglings on the right side of the map. Serral eventually secures the third. It's a little bit annoying for him, but obviously this is something he will have practiced against many times.
Yeah. It's not the most common, you know, opener for the Terran to actually SCV scout, but I do love when they keep the SCV there. Like sometimes they really are scared. It's a map that could be full of pressure. It's a Zerg player who's awfully aggressive, and they just run back home with the SCV. But I like staying around. Roachborn once again coming down. This is early. This is like, that was 3:30. He usually puts it down at 4 minutes for that macro opener. So I do wonder what this could lead into. Hellion Banshee for Kier.
Yep, nothing out of the ordinary here for Kier. No second factory. Serral does get an SCV here with that small group of Zerglings. Not bad whatsoever for him. This is a map as well where taking the alternative third base just doesn't feel quite right. So I quite like that Kier decided to keep the SCV patrolling. And it looks like this is actually just a macro start. Serral still following this up with an Evo Chamber together with a Lair. Maybe just a little bit concerned, or maybe because of the timing of the third, he just had a little bit of money sitting around and he figured, you know what, may as well get the Roach Warren a little quicker. Or maybe he's just trying to sell the story here to Kier as well, right? There's so many little mind games that we see at this level. Keeping a drone there as well. He's pretending he's a Protoss player right now, ZG. He's trying to wall himself in against the depth shade buys or whatever. It's
great stuff, man. And yeah, I love your points. Like, it maybe could have been some convincing, but yeah, maybe it was just the slightly off-kilter start to this game, changing that timing up a little bit. So +1 Carapace is on the way. Lair is going to finish up. We got Stim coming up for Kier, so still no battle mech as of yet. These Hellions so far unable to find any of that drone damage. Banshee, though, maybe going to get a little luckier in the main base. Only a Queen, so yeah, I would say that is a little luckier, yeah.
Yeah, Cloaking Field is also going to finish up in just about maybe 15-20 seconds or so. And already, I mean, I think it's important to just maximize damage and then hide in a corner, come back for more in just a moment. I don't mind this at all, though he flies it a little bit too close to the sun. And Serral does end up getting the snipe. Probably could have had another worker or two, but still 5 drones for a single Banshee is nothing to be disappointed by.
Yeah, that's... You know, unfortunately, there's other repercussions to losing the Banshee, but as far as kind of like direct, like looking at the numbers, I would say yes. Fortunately, Kier having a little bit of a macro mistake. He is building a bunker as well, so that's interesting. So he got into the
rallying the SCVs here somehow, which is a pretty big error, actually. Yeah. Those workers are not mining for a while.
Okay. Not sure what the bunker was for, but I guess he realized he didn't actually need it. But
probably
yeah, that
was... 3.5-minute Roach Warren, right? Like, he saw the quick Roach Warren, and maybe he's afraid for the Roaches coming across right now. He lost the Banshee. Yeah, it becomes very scary.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I love that he just immediately canceled it, actually. He kind of was like, well, yeah, but oh, no, I've seen something else that tells me that's not the plan. Because it isn't. Serral went for the Infestation Pit. He's going for the Baneling Nest. The Hive will be coming down shortly. Kier going for, so far, it's the 3CC into the bio play. You know, is going to be a fast 4th command center instead. We see that bit of a longer game from him. I wouldn't necessarily mind another 8 racks. It is one of the scariest things a Terran could do, but in the grand scheme of things, we've been saying it all the time, like, you gotta just change things up and kind of surprise Serral. The onus is on you.
Absolutely. Serral getting the scout right now inside of the opponent's main base, and Kier just following this up very normally. So no shenanigans with Cyclones, no Terran mech. This is all looking like very conventional StarCraft, at least as far as the StarCraft that we've been seeing over the years goes. I don't mind the idea of an 8-Rex again, but I think Incorporeal is much worse for it than Ultralove. In general, it just doesn't have an easy base to attack into. Serral, again, picking an expansion all the way in the bottom left-hand corner that is just difficult for Kier to reach. You can't really easily send out an 8-Rex in this direction, at least not to the alternative 4th. It's difficult in general, of course, but it does kind of feel like we're, heading in that direction again.
Yeah, 3 extra barracks have been added on, guys. That's the choice. 3 extra barracks or a 4th command center. So this is going to be another dedicated 3-base push. And I'm with you. We don't see it as often on this map. But I do see absolutely a potential in this. I think here is going to...
4th command center as well.
Oh, okay. So this is... All right. So, I mean, you can play around with it. You know, as we saw the first game, that 4th was very much delayed, way after it was kind of clear the AREX wasn't really working anyway. This is kind of like the in-between. I mean, you still don't have a fast second factory, for instance, for more of that factory unit production. It isn't the fastest, I should say, 4th command center, but that was a great scout from the Changeling, because if Cure was able to successfully hide that, maybe the only thing that Serral saw was the 8 racks in the main base. Now he knows that it is going to be 4th command center. Shouldn't, take away all the aggression from Cure, of course, but Serral feels like he's already prepared for anything.
Yeah, this could also turn into a bit of a misread here for Serral, because he's now seen the 4th command center, and maybe he's now believing that therefore barracks 6, 7, and 8 are going to be delayed. He's not really making a lot of changes, though, so I don't believe he's actually misreading this at all, but he hasn't seen the additional barracks, so that could work out in Cure's favor. That being said, though, he's getting all of the preparations, right? Actually, we're going into a Hydralisk then here, so maybe skipping the Ultras, maybe thinking more about, well, going into Lurkers here eventually. Either way, Serral's still fully expecting an attack, it seems like, and once more, a nice macro game here in the second match.
Yeah. Cure, I mean, he did go up to 73 SCVs. This wasn't some, like, ultimate fake, which would be very, very dangerous to do. He will be getting into the macro stages. He needs to play primarily bio. Okay, Banshee does go down. That's nice just to scout around. Big attack on the right side. We'll talk about the repercussions of the builds in a second, because this is still a scary push. It does have a 4th round behind it, but you got to take this seriously. Serral already moving in. Blinded Cloud's coming down. Baneling's looking for connections. And they are going to find it in the bottom right and break up that ramp and take down all of the tanks.
I didn't even see the Vipers moving in, ZG. I think they moved in through the center from the Watchtower or something along those lines, but Serral getting the perfect blinding clouds once again on top of some very important Terran units. Cure microing his army as well into that right side corner. There's nowhere to run. It's actually kind of an interesting feature on the map. It's just a complete dead end right next to that new expansion that Serral built. He holds it, but this time around, Cure does have a stellar economy on the back of it too. Not the fastest possible 4th command center, but he still has enough income to continuously contest the Zerg here. And that's a little bit of micro on the Widowmine. Serral taking minimal amounts of damage.
Yeah, my fear is that he was pushed back. He once again went all the way home, so he's losing a lot of that aggression and just constant action that a Terran would want. Then he does move out again, and then his planetary explodes. Like Serral, it's like he's seeing these things 2 minutes in the future and is already prepared for them, including another defense back at home. Cure back down to a 3cc Terran, perhaps even less, as the Banelings are looking for big shots on the SCVs. Not quite going to find them, but Cure is in some trouble. They can't get the counter damage done.
Fight as well in the meantime in the bottom left-hand corner. Is Cure achieving anything in that section of the map? In the picture-in-picture, it does not look like it. What about the main army over here, though? Maybe he can finally strike back and get some real damage in. I don't believe there's enough Zerg to actually, shut this down for now. He does decide to use the Blinding Cloud, though, and even though the hatchery falls, quite a few of the Terran units also pay the price. Still, though, Serral committed to killing a command center, right? And that was quite expensive. By no means a cost-effective trade for him. It's forcing Cure to be very active out on the map. And so far, he's actually getting some damage done.
Yeah, I would actually say that was the damage that he needed to do. Exactly that. He got the hatchery without sacrificing a large chunk of bio units, once again going for all of these cancels, while mainly this time around attacking on the left side, clearing out that creep spread, establishing a presence over there. Serral, once again, a little lacking in the units at this particular moment. Needs more time, needs the Banelings, needs the Hydras to pop out, and another hatchery is going to fall.
That's really good right here for Curie. Indeed, snipes another base here too. And keep in mind, he did save the workers when the 4th base went down. Only like 2 of them ended up falling, and it's allowing Cure to continue playing a macro game. He's also sniping the Hive right now inside of the main base of Serral. It's running dangerously low, and you can see that Serral is starting to get overwhelmed. The Hive indeed does end up going down. The Terran Bio Army has now arrived over at the 3rd base. That's where the Baneling Nest is located. Say goodbye to that structure. Cure looking very dangerous. Yeah,
very, very dangerous. The supplies are even right now, but Cure is going to reestablish his 4th command center, and Serral has just been sent down to a 3-hatch, no lair, Zerg player. That does feel awfully, a little unideal, awfully scary, especially as Cure did manage to get up those upgrades, still working on his 3-3 maxed out bio. Serral has to triple expand to try and catch up. And I guess one's a macro hatchery, but still, this is not the steady Serral that we saw finish the last game. There was absolutely a hiccup.
Yep, and he's also gone for a Lurker Den right now, which is awesome, but obviously Seismic Spines and the Burrow upgrade, all of it requires Hype Tech, so he needs to rebuild that as well. Cure effectively has full map control for the next, I want to say, 3-4 minutes. Maybe Serral can do like an attack with some Zerglings or a run by here and there, but this is going to be Cure's game right now. If he has an opportunity to snipe another base, that would be big. It would likely force Serral into almost like an all-in. Still though, this army here from the Zerg is not to be underestimated. We have Infestors, we've got Vipers, there is Hydra Ling. I mean, eventually, if he can actually get those hatcheries up and he can actually get additional gas and he can back up to a hive, he should be able to get the Lurkers out.
Yeah, that hive snipe is just so, it's so good for Cure. I mean, getting 2 hatcheries plus that, but yeah, it is a triple expand because he's expanding back into his main, which also, by the way, the lair wasn't available, so did we get the Baneling Nest back?
No, he doesn't yet have a Baneling Nest. I think he's actually skipped it for now. He wants to go Lurkers instead. He needs to start up a hive soon, though.
Yes, he does. He does want those hive upgrades. It has started, but it's going to take a long time to get there. Good fungal on the left side. Is going to need a little bit more follow-up, so a second fungal is there. That might just do the trick, but Cure having a very large army over to the right side. By the way, Cure going up to his 5th command center, and extra starports coming down, Fusion Core as well, so Liberators will eventually become a problem. That has absolutely set back Serral so much in this game. He is absolutely on the road to recovery, but he's missed out on a lot of the aggression, the run-bys, the comforts of having the map control that it looked like he was going to have before Cure sniped 3 bases.
You're still struggling, though, trying to see if he can actually close this game out. It's so difficult to kill a Zerg with Infestor Viper and then all of these other units on the ground. Serral's just trying to play survival, and one thing he does still have, as we do see a nice engagement over here, is the creep spread. The creep spread hasn't really been hurt that much. It's quite common for us at this stage in a TVZ to see the creep pushed all the way back to like the 3rd, but Serral has been diligently just replacing it, and it's making it more, like, it's making at least the defense possible. Without it, I think it'd be super hard, and there's finally Seismic Spines coming up. Feels extremely late, nearly 15 minutes into it, but I love that Cure decided to go for additional starports. We have another fungal growth. Also, the ranged upgrade for those Liberators.
Yeah. Has to split the medevac at the last second. The Lurkers are going to be great. You know, Serral had this wonderful plan, again, before just everything went poorly for him, which was, I believe, I thought the Lurkers are going to be great. I thought, okay, Cure is going to be going for, you know, this multitasking style, a lot of bio more than any other siege unit. Lurkers are great at just planting themselves in a couple of bases, you know, 2 or 3, and then suddenly a double drop is not nearly as threatening. And they are more cost efficient than a lot of the counterpart styles of late game Zerg, like Ultras throwing themselves in and dying to maybe, you know, eventually Ghost. But the Lurkers are still so defensive right now that it's still a very scary scenario. I think they're great for the situation, but to actually feel comfortable again, I would believe Serral wants to get aggressive. You know, he's got to get something on the map. He's got to make sure that Cure is also sweating. He has recovered. He has gotten the bases. He's getting a little bit of the map control back, spreading the creep a little bit further, planting the infestors. But this is still a very scary scenario where Cure has managed to get up to those 5 bases with Liberators and all these upgrades coming down to the production tab.
No council in the hatchery as Cure is once more trying to see if he can get this line of attack done. He needs to be careful, though, because the Zerg army is getting better, but so is his. Fungal growth does come from the Infestor Burrow close by. Is there enough damage here for the Zerg player to actually shut this Terran attack down? I think just barely. And so far, honestly, Serral is doing almost like what he was doing yesterday against Raynor, where this kind of looked like an impossible defense, but he's still in the game. And when Serral's in the game and he has a decent economy and, you know, he's certainly still behind, but I can never really write him off. I feel like this is a situation where most Zerg players would have already lost. And Serral's still hanging on. He's got 190 supply. He's got good upgrades. And eventually, right, all of those upgrades are going to even up. Maybe Cure does it the 3-3 faster, but you can't go to 4-4.
Yeah, that's a limitation in StarCraft. Yeah, no, this eventually will stabilize to a certain degree, but the one thing that Serral will be missing for a long portion of this game that most other, like, you know, TVZs where you don't have all those bases killed, he won't have a bank. he won't have that kind of backup to say, I can take a bit of an unequal engagement and still be okay. And that's what's really scary as a Zerg player, is not having that. Once again, another concave coming in for Cure, seeing an opportunity, will be able to take out the Lurkers and force the Hydras back. Serral is getting a Nidus Worm in the main base, but did he fill it with anything? No, the game going too fast to actually think about that currently, but it is maybe still an option. No, definitely not. But the good news is the Liberators are kind of baited. Perhaps the attack on the left side from Serral can find some damage.
Yeah, using the Nidus Worm mostly as a distraction, now trying to see if he can maybe push here at the front. This is not an army that can fight straight up against that of the Terran, so I think it's about time for him to retreat once more. Serral mostly just buying himself a lot of time though, and Cure did not quite go for the mass command center that we've been seeing over the years. I mean, he does have quite a few, but this is not like the 12 orbital commands where he can actually just drop mules and disable the fog of war with non-stop scans, right? He's got a good army, but this is an army that's meant to be attacking. I think going triple Starport Mass Liberator is awesome, but he's not quite closing the game out with it just yet.
Yes, that's true, you know, but it is a scary prospect to imagine all the Liberators, 13 of them, that he's built up, you know, all sieged up on the 5th base of Serral.
Exactly.
You know, like how do you, I don't even know how you deal with that. You know, we don't have a Spire for Corruptors that could try and like maybe go around and actually shoot them down. We're kind of just hoping the Viper abducts and Mary Pairs of Bomb can kind of combine together to take things down. But this is what was really important for me, was that Serral actually got something on the other side of the map. That Nidus Worm in the main to go for the big diversion was an excellent idea. Didn't find a whole ton from it, but is once again trying to get something on their side while simultaneously defending. Here's those Liberators sieging up on the 5th base, but the Hydras boost on forward, take them down. The bio pushed back far enough that they couldn't support, with the Lurkers threatening with their spines. Kira thought that was the moment, but he was maybe a little too quick to actually pull the trigger. Now he's having some trouble defending his 3rd base and mining from his 5th.
Serral is such an absolute monster, ZG. That was insane. Using the lunge ability to get those Hydras to cross the distance a little bit quicker. He doesn't have a Spire. He technically doesn't have a good answer against those flying units from the Terran. I thought he was going to abduct, right? But he decided to go for the Parasitic Bomb and the lunge with the Hydras instead. Lurkers behind too, making it hard for the Terran army to actually chase, and now suddenly he is the one on the offensive, and he is the one whose army needs to be respected. Planetary Fortress in the top right-hand corner is going to go down. There is a way to retreat here for the Zork as well through the Nidus network, but Serral is apparently ready to continue fighting as well. All of the Liberators get abducted. There's enough Hydras available too to shut them out of the skies. What a game here for Serral.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Cure thinking that he had, you know, a potential with the Liberator count to, again, siege up and a choke, but the dynamic isn't really working, perhaps. You know, when you envision that dynamic as a Terran, you're like, it's going to be beautiful, they're going to just run into the Liberator zones, and they're going to die. But what's actually happening is that his bio army can't protect his Liberators because the Lurkers are there, as opposed to hoping the Liberators push the Lurkers away. So this is really completely 180 flipped for Cure. The Liberators are going to be nice for protecting bases, but only if they're there in time. That command center went down way too quick. Not able to save that one. Cure, once again, a little bit on the ropes, trying to get on Serral's side of the map, but then fumble from behind. Parasitic Bomb on the Medivacs as well. Good last-second split, but Cure, he's lost so much of the ground he gained. This Liberator not doing enough counter damage. Serral's just a beast.
Absolute beast indeed. Now we're 20 minutes into the game, and Cure is trying to re-establish the top right-hand corner. At the 20-minute mark, your 4th base is going to start running low, right? Even though you don't have the fastest possible 4th. He needs income, and he needs it now. Now, the top right-hand corner, maybe his saving grace. If he can actually mine it and drop the mules there, that would be amazing for him. But Serral does not really let his foot off the gas. Still using these Nidus Worms to go all around the map. He can obviously just send a few units as well to the top right, and I think he's accidentally going to stumble upon that command center here in just a moment. And that is going to show him where the income of the Terran is currently coming from. In the meantime, the Nidus Worm in the main base was not addressed.
Oh no, this time it was absolutely real.
Yeah.
Lurkers actually popped out of that one. And Cure, you just...
Can't even afford a scan easily here.
That's true. He hardly can. He's incredibly supply blocked. He sees the incoming Zerg army and tries to get the engagement going, but an Infestor on the backside yet again. Serral, he can wait a little bit, he can be patient, but he is ahead. 30 army supply, taking down every last Liberator with the Vipers, and Cure, he might have just lost the handle of this one.
I'm starting to get nerd chills here. This game is absolutely insane from Serral. He was so far behind, but still had enough to continue fighting, and he has navigated this game honestly brilliantly. skipping all the unnecessary stuff. Keep in mind he lost his main, like he didn't have a hive anymore just about 10 minutes ago. And somehow, some way, he's managed to build all of this back up. Parasitic bombs here are great, the fungal growths have been fantastic, the Hydras shut down that orbital command. And now Serral is smelling blood. He is looking to see if he can even push the natural expansion and the third base off Cure. GG gets cold. And Serral may be shaking his head. He's not really too happy with that win, but I can imagine if you are in Cure's shoes right now, how do you feel? Like, that is not a spot that you want to be losing.
No, there's definitely a moment where it was scary for the Zerg, 100%. But, you know, we do have to remember that the game started off with Cure also being in a difficult spot, I suppose, or, you know, also taking his lumps. It wasn't necessarily, yeah, the very turtle game where no one did anything to each other and both of them got into perfect positions, whereas Zerg obviously got 3 hatcheries killed. That was much worse than what the Terran had. The Terran also, I think, had to make some decisions, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that I think a lot of people are going to be asking, why were there no ghosts?
Yeah.
And I think it is just a decision that he made to go into the Liberators first and foremost, hopefully swiftly enough that he could capitalize on Serral still recovering and still depending heavily on unupgraded lurkers. So the timing didn't really work out, and I think the positioning was a little too eager as well, just in that first Liberator move out. But you gotta imagine if that was a more typical game, if that was a calmer game, and ghosts are included, then again, the dynamic of lurker, Liberator, Viper, Ghost, it really changes.
Absolutely. He had a choice, right? He decided to go for the big attack with the Liberators, and he got slowed down during the process. He very easily, if he wanted to, could have gone for the Mass Command Center, Mass Ghost, and then eventually Liberators and all of that, and slow down the game a lot. He decided, I've done enough damage, I'm going to try and see if I can win the game, and I think he had a real opportunity. But Serral countering with a couple of Zerglings, a couple of Hydras, the fake or empty Nidus Worm in the back of the main, all of it slowed down Cure sufficiently to the point where Serral could actually get those lurkers upgraded again. There were like a good, I want to say 2-3 minutes there where Cure really had a shot at potentially ending the game, but he could not quite find the engagement. Well, next up, we find ourselves on the map Pylon, and spotting right here in the bottom right, he is Serral.
In the top left of Pylon, he is the blue Terran for Team Liquid. He is Cure.
This is, of course, a semi-finals match, meaning that the winner of this best of 7 moves on to the grand finals to face the winner of Solar versus Classic that will be played later today. So far, Serral is looking very, very scary, but Cure, of course, has created opportunities for himself. And even though that game did slip out of his hands at some point, I am not really... Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a clean sweep for Serral. I think he certainly struggled there, and there were a few moments that, yeah, Cure really had an opportunity to potentially go in for the kill. He was maybe a little bit hesitant, maybe also just a little bit too careful. But I highly doubt that this is going to be a clean sweep.
I don't think so, or at the very least, some of these games, you know, they're going to be like, yeah, it was a 4-0, but all of them are worth watching kind of situation. Right. But it is tough, you know, and I know we're talking a lot about how good Serral is, but it just... I'll tell you, he's playing very, very well. But I also really wanted to shout out just how quickly he got that lunge. You know, like, this can sometimes feel like, not so much like a miscellaneous upgrade.
It's like a luxury upgrade, right? It's like luxury, building armor, high-sec auto-tracking.
Yes, I love that term. Yeah, exactly. Especially when you consider the position of which he was getting to it. Again, wasn't a, like, I'm on 5 bases, I've been mining this entire time. He had to make the tough choices, and he did that. And that was actually a really important addition to taking out those Liberators. So I wonder if he's even had games that were similar to that. There was more Liberator base than anything else, and he saw that that was an effective treatment for it. So just really cool stuff. Cure, of course, he had that moment. He had that moment. It was brilliant. He was multitasking. He was every which way. Serral really was starting to fall behind in a big way, and you could even see it on his face. But getting to that point already is so difficult, and that was after it actually even looked a second grim for Cure. And it's so tough to be in this position where, you get the moments, they don't work out. You get the maps that are different from the last time you faced Serral, and they're not working out in your favor. I mean, it just feels like an even bigger uphill climb than usual.
Serral, by the way, taking now the third base in the direction of the opponent. Usually that's considered a little bit aggressive. I wonder if that means that he is the one looking to maybe put on a bit of pressure. Either way, Cure for now opening up quick triple command center, quick 1-1-1. So again, we have a factory and a starport out. No second factory yet, and even though he can obviously follow it up with additional factories from here, the early game won't be too much different. I'm fully expecting that this is going to be Hellion Banshee once more. He can also go Hellion Liberator if he really wants to, but with a Tech Lab coming up already on that barracks, I highly doubt it. I think this is just going to be good old Hellion Banshee.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other things that he can do to mix up this, third CC not quite settled plan of action. And there are a couple of other builds you can fit into an opener like this. You can add on a faster armory, so your first Marine attack has Hellbats. You can, that's kind of the main one I'm thinking of. But my point is that I think about these things that you could include in this opener from Cure, and I'm like, well, Roaches kind of handle a lot of it, and it's almost guaranteed that Serral is going to be adding on that Roach Warren, which would usually be around now, so that almost guaranteed. This could be a change-up for Serral.
Yeah, this is another one of those maps where an 8-Rex can be really powerful. I know we keep bringing up the 8-Rex, but it is a map where you can certainly go for that push. That being said, though, it looks like Serral indeed is mixing it up a little bit. Despite the fact that game number 1 and 2 worked out well for him, he's decided to skip the Roach Warren and go for a lair instead. I'm expecting to see a Baneling Nest and double Evolution Chamber in just a moment, but we'll have to see. A single Evo for now, maybe just prioritizing the armor upgrade. But this is certainly interesting.
Yeah, I'm really waiting for this development here. Fake stim, by the way. Marauder Slow is on the tab, not because you want that first and foremost. He was trying to fake out the Overlord. That really is real cloak. Didn't even need to fake him out, obviously, as it is going to be Battle Mech. Finally, we are going to see this arrive. I do think you got to throw it in, certainly before the last map here, and that is going to be something Serral needs to get the scout on. And he doesn't have a Roach Warren, so this, again, is really worth mentioning. Say that there are more Hellions than Serral predicts. Only having Lings, and then if Queens are in position, I suppose them too, but still, against, 10, 12 Hellions, would be a very big issue with the Battle Mech following it up. Here is also going to add on double armory, so a pretty greedy way of doing this, very macro-oriented. Serral doesn't quite know the situation as yet.
I'm actually very excited for this. Going into the tournament, a lot of Zerg players have been vocal about not liking the Battle Mech army from Terran very much. They say that the Cyclone is too powerful, and you always got to put a little asterisk right next to it because you haven't actually seen the very best Zerg versus Terran player in the world deal with it all too much. And in this game, Serral is going to have to address it, right? What is he going to do against the Battle Mech army? So far, it's just going to be Ling Bane, but is he going to go into Infestors? Is he going to go into Vipers? Will we see a very quick Hive? Is he going to rely on surrounds? Is he going to go for counterattacks? There's technically a lot of options, and it doesn't seem like there's like one, okay, this is the way you deal with Cyclone Mech. This is the way you gotta get it done that Zerg players have decided on.
Yeah, but it is not going to be Battle Mech. I think, we were just like, well, Factory's Battle Mech, there you go. But the double armory, you don't really need that attack upgrade as a priority for the Cyclone style, as that's the lock-on that does what you need it to do. But yeah, double upgrades going into tank mech. So we're actually kind of going backward a little bit in time. It's not necessarily the hot topic. It is a different way of playing, however, and maybe still Serral's not sure that it's mech. I don't believe he's seen these factories. I don't know about the gas timings he was able to see. And then if he did, he would maybe also be thinking what we're talking about, Battle Mech first and foremost, but it's not. He does see a tank, and a lot of Hellions. So that was enough, but
it's funny, right? Like, this is a build that is technically not very popular anymore because we've decided that it's not the best way to play Terran, but maybe because Serral could also be thinking, okay, this is going to be Battle Mech, he decides to overreact. I mean, he will be extremely diligent with scouting. He will be seeing the units that pop out of those factories, and that will be a big tell. He does decide to add on a Roach Warren right now together with a Hive. It's quite rare to see those two structures on the production tab at the same time.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, indeed. But it is going to be good old-fashioned mech, so with the goal of this, Battle Mech, it can, in a way, play almost like Bio, which is that it's very active. It really wants to re-engage and hit over there and hit over here. Battle Mech is fun that way, but good old-fashioned mech, you can call it the old-school mech, the vintage mech, it's going to be way more about getting to that perfect army, right? Around 180 supply, you can kind of push out, max out, if that's your goal, to push out and win with it, or, of course, you could turtle, which is you kind of threaten maybe a move out, but really your ultimate goal is even to get to like spooky mech with ghosts. That's what you have to keep an eye on. It can be a short map. When you see the mech army moving out and they're maxed out and you haven't done anything to it, suddenly they're on your doorstep as a Zerg player. You're just like, well, oh god, even though Vipers are good and I've got a lot of Roaches. So that can be scary. At this point, as I said, Serral knows it's mech. He knows it's tank mech. and it is up to him now to kind of figure out, how do I want to keep this down? How do I want to make sure it doesn't get to that perfect final form?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what he decides to go for. Is this going to be Brute Lord? Is it going to be Hive Tech? Do we go Swarm Host? I mean, there's technically quite a few options available to the Zerg player once more. He is now getting what looks like a full surround with a lot of these units. Yeah, those Hellions are not going to go away, but the main bottleneck for Terran when playing this army is gas. So you can sort of get rid of your Hellions eventually. Now, I think that was a little expensive. Losing that many Hellions is certainly too much, but it is still not the end of the world, because the Siege Tank and all of the expensive, well, gas-heavy mech units is what you are aiming for most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right, it was a bit expensive for that. Good news is they are relatively cheap, they are mineral-based, and they produce fast, especially if they are reactored, which we do have. So the Hellions, you know, still going to accumulate here, protect those tanks. Maybe the Ling Swells, for instance, also going to be necessary as we look forward to the future. That Spire, and you're wondering what Serral was going to do to kind of react to this, and it does look like a greater Spire with Brood Lords is the option. A mech player, you know, they're going to be primarily concerned about the mid-game bust to begin with. Then when that doesn't happen, they're going to start worrying about that higher technology. And if it's Brood Lords, they want to start up those Thors. They're going to be really well upgraded Thors too. But you know what the reaction to that is for the Zerg player is Neural Parasite, and that is started very quickly.
Yep, Serral is just preparing to play a long, drawn-out game. I wonder if he's going to allow the Terran a 5th base. Because so far, he's not really addressing the 4 bases that Cure has. He's saying, I will just give you whatever you like on your side of the map. This, though, is the scary moment. That is an terrifying army right here for Cure moving across. Serral, in the meantime, going for 7 Dropper Lords. Is he planning on, like, dropping Banelings up on top of his army?
Ooh,
there's very little anti-air.
We haven't seen drops against a mech in it feels like a very long time. That could be very interesting, but this is actual push mech. You know, you're not just completely turtling, you are pushing, and Serral was trying to fit a lot of things in a short time span then, up until about 10 minutes, trying to get everything done before that army already knocking on the front door right now into that choke. Serral does have a maxed out army himself and a couple of Vipers, but let's see how this engagement goes. It's going to be through a few chokes, and that's a very deep tank line.
Zerglings in the meantime going in for the counter-attack, but there's still some reinforcing units available. I don't know if Serral can push in that. Look at the amount of siege tanks there are, and look how well spread they are. 19? Yeah, Blinding Clouds alone. I mean, there's 2 Vipers. I don't think they're going to be able to cut it.
Yeah, and now we even have the reinforcements kind of helping out against those potential future run-bys. And now the engagement will happen. Banelings rolling on the right side into the Hellbats, hoping for something a little bit better. Blinding Clouds taking out the frontline tanks, but it is a depth of tanks through those bridges on the left side. Doesn't work out for the secondary army movement. The tanks will stay put, meaning that Cure, with what was probably 7 factories, is going to be able to reinforce that point. He is going to stay there. He's going to continue on. Unsieging your tanks, very dangerous. The Zerg player does remax very, very quickly. We need those Hellions on the front lines as well, because Lings can be a problem for tank only. And Cure did lose 21 SCVs during that time. So it looks like, all said and done, Serral basically did enough to the mech army to kind of get a breath and a little bit to the economy to say that this is still a game that I can control, but that is still on my doorstep, and I need to continue figuring out how to actually nip this in the bud.
Pure finally moves forward again with some of the units. Pure Siege Tank makes it super hard to actually push. I think Serral may have to give up on this base. I don't think he's really going to be able to hold on, but he's still going in for the counterattacks, and these counterattacks are really hurting Cure. He wants to send all of the units that he's got towards the other side. Serral does decide to commit Corrosive Piles again, too. He decides to back up as the Siege Tanks are slowly shelling away at that hatchery and whatever else they can hit. Still, though, I don't mind this position too much here for Cure at all. He's still out there. This is a super scary spot.
This is very scary for Serral. He's continuing to bleed out. Reinforcements trying to protect this hatchery. He does grab quite a few tanks right there. That was a good Corrosive Bile combination, but it did cost him the Ravagers to do so. So this is he's making kind of a final stand here, and it's not quite working out. Cure is not being pushed back entirely. He will get the hatchery. When he gets that, he's going to move forward onto the high ground and start attacking into Serral's natural, also cutting off reinforcements from this 5th base over to the right. So this is a very important moment for Serral. It's the linchpin, really, to the defensive mech overall, is keeping the base alive and actually pushing mech back right here, right now.
There are still Vipers up, though, somewhere, and if they can get a Blinding Cloud on these armies, I mean, the Siege Tanks are looking extremely clumped up now. Cure wants to try and get a move on. He knows that he doesn't really want this Zerg player to breathe for too long on these expansions. Serral still sending in some units for the counter-attack too. The hatchery will go down, it looks like, but here are the Vipers. This is when Serral pulls the trigger and all of the Siege Tanks are clumped up together. Only a few of them can actually fire at the same time, and Roach Ravager Zergling is starting to break through. The Vikings do hunt down the Vipers, but this position has been broken by Serral.
Yeah, very important that happened there. The Vipers had to take the long way around because Cure's Viking count had actually grown quite to a scary point. So if they were on the Vipers' butts, like the Vipers cannot do what they just did. And that is a very big difference. That said, that was still not a, Cure down to 100 supply. He's only on 3 bases, right? He got up to 5 bases. He's reinforcing. He's taking advantage of the defensive chokes at this point, and he's trying to get back to that maxed out army. Serral, though, he sees his moment. He was able to defend the base. He's going to actually get maxed out again. He's going to start using his army to try and pick away at the lower tank count while Cure basically licks his wounds and prepares for the second attack.
The entire left side of the map is completely unharmed, right? Serral can do whatever he likes in that side, and even if the bases on the right side do end up falling for him, he should still be able to continue mining. I love these relentless Zergling counterattacks. They're just so tricky to hold. Cure is spread out, and that's the problem with Terran Mech. It's a slow-moving army. You can't very quickly reinforce this position with a medevac full of Marines, right? Like, I mean, you could do that with a medevac full of Marines, but with a mass siege tank, it's difficult to pull it off. So Cure is really trying to defend and turtle up this spot, but if he commits too many units in this angle, I mean, in this area, he's going to be in trouble in the natural, in the third base. He can't easily hold on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm in agreement. I love that Serral keeps hammering this point so that it never gets to a situation where there's 2 command centers providing SimCity. There's not 5 tanks and Liberators and Hellions available. Just making sure that's an open opportunity for later, while also continuing to harass again the main army as well as this base. Serral has a lot of his army off to the left side, but Cure decides I'm maxed out. It's ready to go. Round number 2, now hitting into Serral's 5th.
Yeah, and Serral needs to be careful with this particular fight. I love this engagement here for Cure. I think he's going to be able to just get this base at this rate. I mean, if Serral wants to push into the choke point, I think that would be a very dangerous call. So he decides to evacuate and go in for the counterattack instead. He also built an additional hatchery in the bottom left, so those drones are going to be able to continue mining quite easily. These are, by the way, very well upgraded Zerglings. They don't quite have full armor, but they do certainly pack a punch. I like that Serral decides to give up on the base, but that's a good win, of course, for Cure, who does clump a few of those flying units together. And that means that Vipers with Blinding Clouds are once more a very real threat. Yeah,
it's only one Viper at this point. Serral, he's been on a knife's edge for a very long time, has barely been scraping by. Starting to commit a little bit of a bank, and here's what's important. I think here's what you really wanted to get to in the first place, but now you really want to get to be that safety unit. The Broodlord, there are no Thors. There's very little anti-air, especially now that the 6 or whatever Vikings it was have been mostly destroyed. This is the time where Broodlord can save you long enough to hopefully, again, reestablish some of those bases. Cure, he's not going to get a hint of this because there's only one Broodlord so far as he continues dealing with run-bys and main base attacks. Tanks on the opposition, they're going to go ahead and die a little bit, but this is a position that Cure can hold. Dealing with the run-by is important, dealing drone damage as well, so he's taking down Serral's limited economy, but Serral is slowly building up the Broodlords. He sees this as his chance to shock and awe Cure and give him, again, breathing room he desperately needs.
I do feel that over the last few minutes, we've seen about a dozen siege tanks going down to just pure Zergling. There's a lot of Zerglings all over the map running around and shutting down those random tanks, and Cure having a hard time managing all of the action that Serral's throwing out there, but you're absolutely right. The siege tanks cannot counter Broodlords, right? Neither can, well, the Hellions. I mean, there's a few Vikings up in the air, but they would take forever. I think as soon as the Broodlords are revealed, we need to see Thor production. Well, there we go. He does show them right now to Cure, and immediately, indeed, Thors begin. Problem is, as a Terran here, how do you know how many Thors to make? You've only seen about like 4 or 5 Broodlords. You can't really justify building 12 Thors against that, right? If you make 12 Thors, you're going to get overwhelmed by Roach Zergling. So it's a balancing act, and it's a difficult call to make right now for Cure. Do you expect Serral to double down on the Broodlord production, or do you think it's just going to be a few?
I think he is. I mean, cheating a little bit. 4 more Corruptors are on the way. Unless he's really scared of the Viking response, which is old-fashioned. I do think Thors are going to be continually pumped out as much as Cure can afford. Right now, they're both broke. This is why the production tab is limited. Just because it is 3 Thors, and honestly, like, as long as you have a good number of tanks, let's say 8. So I'm going to go with 8. Then you do feel like Thors as a main part of your army. Oh god, it's 18, so plenty of tanks. If you're maxed out, like 8 tanks and however many Thors that would be as well, is still a pretty damn good army, even against Roach Ravager. But yeah, it is a tech swap opportunity usually for Zerg players to trick Terran like that, but only if they have this humongous bank, which Serral has never had.
Big army once more moving across the map here for Cure. This choke point has been an absolute disaster for Serral, struggling to prevent the Terran army from moving into that third base of his. As the expansion there is going to be rebuilt though, and slowly but surely the Terran mech army is once more growing. And Serral indeed does not have the bank to really quickly reinforce this. I like the idea of going Broodlords here, but usually you need to go Broodlords and then very quickly switch into another army again. Broodlords alone are going to make it quite difficult for him if the Thor numbers are big enough, and I really like this position here for Cure across the board, although he needs to be careful. He's losing a lot of siege tanks randomly, and a lot of SCVs here going down too. The Broodlords are now into that choke point. I mean, Thors are usually good in an open terrain, but in a choke, obviously, that's not where they shine.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of turning that around as far as the map here, but only to an extent. There is also the awkwardness. The Hellbats are on the backside instead of the front side as they were. That is fixed. All the Thors get into their single target mode as well, and that's when Broodlords really have to fear even like a minor number. This is only 2. More are sure to come, though, and I think it's also what Serral is respecting. He has to give up on that right side of the map, and hopefully, you know, the 2 bases really that still has fresh mining on the left will do enough, but he's running out of minerals on his original 3 bases. Of course, they both are, but Cure with mules lifting off his command centers has a little bit more of that survivability in a very, very clutch game as Terran 10-2, and this is a clutch game. I mean, no point were they even really over like 1,000 minerals. It was very temporary, as it has just been Cure constantly moving in, knowing that he's got to keep this action up, or Serral's gonna, you know, do his macro thing, and Serral just really hanging on desperately, trying to make all the right moves. He is at 12 Broodlords now with 8 Corruptors in the sky too, and he does have Neural Parasite, but he hasn't had the opportunity to make those Infestors.
I'm very curious to see if Cure here decides to add on some additional SCVs, because he is not remaking any of them over the last few minutes, and that does mean that his income is going to be very, very low. Obviously, it also means that his ultimate army is going to be absolutely massive, but it's going to be difficult for him to compete against 65 workers from the opponent. Obviously, mules are good, but they're not quite that good, especially if you want to have a few scans available. And Pylon, I mean, the map, it's incredibly choky, right? Like, there's a lot of these choke points, and the Hellbats and the Thors don't really have an easy way to engage. Vikings might not be a terrible idea, but again, yeah, it does feel very old school, and this is not going to be that easy to close out here for Cure. He's struggling right now to try and find his base. Blinding Clouds as well as fungal growths go down, and suddenly that means that those broods can start raining the broodlings from the skies. Needs to be careful. Neural Parasite is available, like you already pointed out, and that will always be a clutch as well for Serral if he needs it, but this ult here is really, really nice for the finisher.
Hey, that was actually really, I want to say, odd from Cure, to be honest. I mean, It was a choke. The Hellbats were on the Thor side. They weren't protecting against the Broodlings. The Vipers are going to get beautiful Blinding Clouds because of how choky that was. And you know, he kind of just let it stay there. I mean, I don't know how easy this game is if he didn't right there lose so much of his supply, but that was the game decider, guys. Now Serral's maxed out and Cure's not able to, only 100 supply. It's not scrappy anymore, it's just Serral's game.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, Cure did not rebuild SCVs, so now he's sitting only at 26. He is starting to slowly fizzle out. There's a Blinding Cloud here to boot as well. I don't even really think he needs it, but Zorklings, Roaches, Ravages run in, and it means that a lot of those siege tanks will indeed fall. Not a terrible engagement actually for Cure, but at this point Serral is more than doubling the supply, and that is never a situation you're happy about. Alright, well, this siege tank is very useful.
That was pretty useful. Still not 100 supply useful, but Cure trying to make all these maneuvers now, killing the economy and getting some really important spellcasters down, but even though Serral's still not in big bank territory, and there's only so many bases he's mining from, I guess, it's, you know, he's got double army supply, so double army supply, plus he could use the Neural Parasite if he needed it. He just didn't really need it in the last battle. So many spells that can affect Cure so well. Yeah, Cure, he's, I mean, I think he knows.
Yeah, I think he's processing the loss at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
What's frustrating here for Cure is that the reason that Pylon is such a good map for mass siege tank is because of the choke points, but then ultimately the reason why you lose with mass siege tank is because of all the choke points, right? Because you need to have an answer against the Broodlords, and Thors are just not easy to pull off here. It is a frustrating one here for Cure for certain. He still has an army, and it's not to be underestimated, but Serral can actually remax this too, and obviously he still has Fungals, he still has Blinding Clouds. And if we've seen anything from Serral so far throughout this tournament, it is that he's very, very patient. He's not going to overextend, and he will be more than happy to let Cure come to him and try to maybe send in some Zorkling run-bys every once in a while. Cure at this point only getting a few hundred minerals, well actually he's getting a few thousand right now, but the mule mining, but I mean, this one Ravager, is that the same Ravager the entire game long? Because there's been one Ravager raining vials on this base for ages. No, it's a new one. It's only got 6 kills.
Yeah, I would love if it was the original one, but nope. Serral very comfortable sending a lot of the ground army over to the left side, knowing that he has opportunities to win over on the right. Broodlords are very injured, to be fair, but not quite going down. Corruptors successfully tackling the Vikings, even though they're also getting injured. Again, they're not the ones that are actually dying as much, and Serral has so much supply, he can take a few lumps himself. Here, as I said, you said, is just processing the loss. I mean, the game was very scrappy, and this was clearly a game where for 20 minutes there was not going to be that big Zerg remax. You think you won, but then this big remax, it has been scrappy. Cure recognized that. It's with the overwhelming supply lead that ended up happening towards the last couple of minutes. It's not the same game. Cure might think there's some hope into this main attack, and you can see that Serral is respecting him. But again, I think Serral is just really big on crossing the T's, dotting the I's. Not letting this one go in a silly fashion. 16 Broodlords, 7 Infestors that can again either get almost not that helpful, but neural parasites. Can it just take the entirety of Cure's army with no parasites?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Almost.
Yeah. This is frustrating too for Cure though, right? Because Serral will be more than happy to drag out this game. He doesn't really care. If you are mentally struggling right now, right, and you're maybe very frustrated about the situation, sure, drag it on. We're still, playing a best of 7. There's the neural parasite to rub some salt in the wound. You had that upgrade for a long time already. Didn't really use it until just now. But yeah, Serral looking very scary. But again, not an easy win for him at all. This is, if you look at the scoreboard alone, it looks like it's been a straightforward series for him so far, but honestly this game, Cure had a very real opportunity. That engagement on the left side of the map with the Thors and the Siege Tanks and the Hellbats, fighting into a choke point, Serral with the combination of fungal growth and blinding cloud, just so incredibly difficult there for Cure to get anything done, and yeah, maybe getting a little bit impatient.
Maybe, yeah. And it was such a scrappy game, which I think he did recognize for a time, that he was really hoping that the push-in would work. It really was one of the more ideal pushes you could do, but he was also feeling the pressure from losing so many SCVs and seeing that growing Broodlord count too, and you're just like, well, maybe I take it now before it's 20 Broodlords. It really was one of the worst ones you could have taken. So unfortunately to be put in that position after everything that happened, in the mid game too, because I would say more in the mid game when we were still tank based, he was very much in control of the game, but Serral's able to bring it back. We are going to head to a break, guys. When we come back, could be the conclusion of this best of 7.
sometime soon. It might be a trick, but now I know that I'm in something new. I thought it was real. 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 I thought it was
Welcome back to the first semi-finals of the StarCraft 2 Esports World Cup. It's a best-of-7 series between Serral and Cure, and even though the scoreboard looks pretty one-sided so far, Cure has had great opportunities in each of the games so far, other than maybe the first game of the series. That one was a little bit of a, well, let's call it a Serral game, right? Like, that was a very clean game for Serral, but across the board, especially in Game 2, especially in Game 3, the one that we just watched, Cure had very real opportunities to close it out, and, well, so far, he's having a difficult time, but maybe he can bring it back.
Yeah, there's definitely something to look at and say, if, this had just done a little bit faster, if I had, lost just a little bit of SCVs, like, it would have won the game. There's definitely signs of hope in both, as you said, Game 2 and 3. But even if you do win the next game, there's a bunch more you do have to win against Serral. So very unlikely in StarCraft 2 to come back from a 3-0 deficit, but it has happened in StarCraft's very long history. And Cure might have even had one or two of those. I have to double check for that one, but it's a very, very tough uphill battle. But Serral has shown at least a couple of weaknesses. Maybe this is where Cure can start the journey back.
Okay, well, the map is going to be Persephone, and spawning right here in the top left-hand corner, just one map away from a ticket to the Grand Finals, we have Serral, representing Team Left Basilisk.
Down to the bottom left as the last hope for Team Liquid, he is Cure. We are finally on a map that they played in their previous best of 7.
Are we actually?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Cure, the way that
Hard to judge Persephone, right? This is such a common map.
Yeah, the only other option, I think, for the one they hadn't played was
Last Fantasy?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is just
I would love to see that, to be fair. But
oh, I would have. I would have been so amazed, But no, it's Persephone. They had a really epic battle on this one, actually. Unfortunately, it did still end in Cure's loss, but it was one of those battles where you're just it was Serral win, but you should go back and watch it. It was back and forth. It was macro. It was awesome. So hopefully that happens again here, and Cure has shown those signs of being able to win. He's gotten dangerously close to actually successfully suffocating Serral, right? Like going up to his bases, cutting off the reinforcements, making Serral definitely sweat. So we'll see if Persephone can start it again for Cure on this long road back to potentially winning this best of 7. I am expecting another 3CC 1-1-1, from Cure, but I think he did do a 2-1-1 actually on this map. That could be another change-up. Once again, SCV scouting by the looks of things, and we'll see if it tries to block the hatchery.
I love this double first-person view of both of the players. We can see how fast they are and what they are managing early on. It's very fun, especially when they effectively have the same screen, but obviously are controlling the opposite pieces. And looks like, again, Cure is trying to see if he can get a block. So he's got the Reaper rally towards one of the potential third bases, and then the SCV is patrolling the other one as well. It's going to make it difficult for Serral to take a third. But at this point, obviously, Serral also has opportunities to go for some aggression himself. I mean, we have seen a lot of roach rushes in general. They seem to be quite popular right now. If you do 4 of those in a row, do you really think it's not going to work a single time?
The opposite has been proven. So, an all-in with Roach Ling has actually won 4 times in a row.
Yep.
So that's, yeah, that is possible. And you're absolutely right to point that out. Serral is just... He does seem to be the type who doesn't necessarily do that. He doesn't get a win and then go, okay, time to, like, you know, really pile him on with the jabs here, go for all in, all in. And even when he's up 3-0, he just kind of is like, yeah, you know, it's worked so far, just keep on doing the same thing. So I am looking still at Kier to change his builds up. It is 3CC 1-1-1. No forward 2 rack so far in the series. No 2-1-1s after this in the series.
No.
Like, Kier is still comfortable in his first 5 minutes.
Yeah, no quick second and third factory either. I feel like we've been seeing the build a lot where Terrans have been delaying their starport, but Kjörg is going with his tried and true strategy. And to be fair, this is the build that we've been seeing a lot over the years. There's really nothing technically wrong with it, but obviously the reason that we're mentioning it, Serral actually, did he just, oh, he finished it up or did he? I thought for a second he canceled the upgrade.
Oh, okay.
No, it finished, okay. It just disappeared out of the corner of my eye, but yeah, Kjörg going for the tried and true strategy is interesting here, mostly because in the straight up games, Serral just seems to be a little bit better, right? Now he's going for a Liberator, okay.
Okay, this is a change-up. I do feel like this is familiar. We'll see what it develops into. And just to be clear, like the 3CC, this is not us being like, well, why is he doing the exact same thing? Because he's not. He actually does change it up in every game so far after the 3CC 1-1-1. It's just, I did expect maybe that, you know, 4-2 racks or again into the 2-1-1 instead, but minor notes. Interference metric coming down as a fake for the cloak because he's the Overlord incoming.
You might see the Liberator though. Okay, Serral actually decides to return.
Yeah.
If he would have committed with the Overlord, I think he would have seen the cloaking field fake out and then the Liberator.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to throw in maybe it is an interference matrix just because there was that one game with Ravens. It would have been a cool difference, but no, it was a fake. So no, not even necessary. Didn't actually go in with it. It is going to be Stim.
Yeah.
Looks pretty much on purpose. So Kier going to stick with the bio play for his potential last game in this series. Liberator's a bit of a change-up. That might give Serral a little, like, oh, okay. But I don't think he's going to take too much damage from it.
Yeah, the Overlord just barely does not see the Liberator, but there's already a Spore Crawler coming up, and I'm sure that Queens will be available as well to try and address any flying units that might be, well, getting into the main base. And again, it's just going to be good old bio indeed. So, Stimpec, we have the double engineering base. What about these Hellions? Maybe they can run in. Serral already, though, with the Evolution Chamber block. Perfect positioning on the Queens. Absolutely flawless defense.
Right, yeah. Even, the Spore Crawler's in range. He was so close.
Wow.
Just a smidge to the right. That still wouldn't have gotten that many drones because Serral was reacting, but maybe that Liberator lives and can come back another day. Instead, nothing found with the opening units. We are going into the double engineering bay. The additional barracks are being added on, and then the question is 4th CC or 8 racks, which, you know, the 8 racks, it's still so strong, even though we saw a game where it didn't look particularly great. It is so strong. This is a map where he did previously go 4th CC, so that's what I am thinking. Serral wants to get the scout on that primarily. Well, again, defending against these Hellions, but he seems to have that pretty much on lock. These Queens are tracking them so well. Maybe an opportunity over here. Yeah, he's going to go for it.
He's playing this very safely. You don't obviously want to lose a series like this by throwing away your Hellions. He actually gave Serral the benefit of the doubt. In this instance, the Queens were mispositioned, but he thought it was bait. He thought that maybe there were Zerglings waiting for him to get this around, and then the Queens blocking off the retreat path. Maybe a little bit too much respect given right there by Kier, right? We have a super fast hive on the back of this, too.
620, that's,
yeah.
That's something. Most of us wouldn't even be able to afford it at 620.
81 workers, 4 bases done. We have 1-1 upgrades, Roach speed, Bailingness coming up. I mean, Serral is looking to just skyrocket ahead. Doesn't even get the Overseer kill so far. Has Serral lost anything other than like a Zergling?
Do we have the first blood pop up? I don't
Yeah, he lost a Zergling at the 3rd base with the siege deck, or whatever it was that the attack did. Oh yeah, 2 Zergling. Okay.
There you go.
To be fair, Kier also hasn't lost very much.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, they're just waiting on the decision of the barracks. Ling's once again setting up. Seems very well practiced here for Serral. There is going to be a move out, you know, long before we have that decision on the 4th command center. So this is going to change the pacing a little bit compared to, you know, that first game. And this is going to go over to a difficult area for some Zerg players to tackle. The acceleration zones can help you get us around, but it is such a choky place. And obviously, if you go down your own 4th base, there's a ramp there too. So this is a good moment for Kira to try and find some damage. Hellbats are going to be included.
Yeah, those speed circles definitely help him out. I do think he needs to go, though. If he waits here, okay, at this point, Serral is going to be well prepared. Apparently, Kira a little indecisive. He believes that Serral already has him countered, and he might very well be right. Vipers, though, are coming right now, and that's going to make any defense here for Serral so much easier. He's going into the adrenal glands. He's getting all of the upgrades that will make this sort of attack from Terran easier to hold. We do, by the way, have a 4th command center again, so it's not going to be a complete all-in.
No. 4th command center came down. Kira's going to be playing into the later stages of the game. I did kind of like the pullback, actually. I think he knew the Lings were going to come in for a surround on him. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes in TVZ we say, well, the Zerg had to stop droning. You know, he had to build an army to go deal with that. That's not the case. Serral was already at the drones he wanted to be at, even when Kira was walking across the map. So that's a bit of feels bad moment, but it's also very typical for Serral games. Kira now combining all of his forces to attack into Serral's 5th base, clearing up a lot of creep spread. Serral might not be quite prepared for this.
No, there are Vipers out somewhere. Blinding Cloud is a necessity if he wants to defend this sort of push, and he loses one of the Vipers. Okay. That's a good situation right there for Cure. This, however, is not. There are Zerglings in the 3rd base. There is a little bit of a reinforcement squad, but not even really enough, it looks like, to properly shut this down. Losing 12 workers right as you're securing the 4th really does make everything so much more difficult. It's not even done yet. 14 SCVs go down, and the Zerglings will just run away.
Yeah, that's a good blow. You know, and the Lings are alive, too. Might come back later on. Kira has managed to get himself onto that right side again after a quick cancel on a 5th, but Serral's also grabbing a 6th at this point and is now looking to defend his 4th. He does have a good supply, equal upgrades as well, just shy of 2-2. Is Serral going to really pull the trigger on this one? It looks like he absolutely will. Lings him on the backside as well. Banelings making those connections, and all the tanks have been destroyed. Cure supply plummets.
Absolutely. Blinding Clouds are not those speed-up circles for Zerglings. They certainly help out quite a bit. At least he gets a bit of damage done with this 5th hatchery going down. And in the meantime, there is a hit squad as well on the left. If he gets 2 hatcheries, I mean, I am not disliking it. Okay.
Yeah, this is, you know, kind of reminiscent of Game 2, where it seems like Serral was taking the good engagements, then Kira was able to actually kill a lot of the economy. Not quite grabbing the 4th base, of course, but keeping Serral suppressed. Into the main base we go with a good portion of the buy with 2-2 done before Serral's 2-2. Parasitic Bomb's going to try and stop this and be able to escape. Looks like 3 Medivacs will be able to continue this pressure, as Cure also still has an army off to the right side. Not quite using it. He wants to get the cancel on this one. He does. Okay. And that is probably going to be it. Cure is going to have to go home, but this is, I think, an important moment. He has kept Serral suppressed on the bases. He's taking some okay engagements, and he's getting 4 bases up again with 65 SCVs, actually saturating them.
He has just shut down like 4, 5, 6 hatcheries or so. I feel like a lot of them got cancelled. He may be able to get another one as well. Only a single one got killed, but it has slowed down Serral quite a bit. Main problem, though, for Cure is that the 5th base is not nearly as important for Serral, right? If you shut down a 4th, then suddenly it's difficult for Zerg to actually continue playing. The 5th base is important eventually, but for now, Serral can just macro up on 4 bases instead. There's a Lurker Den coming up. He's going into the +3 carapace. Another hatchery is going to be forced cancel. I mean, it's really quite good here for Cure, who is maxing out now.
Yeah, he's bopping around and really making this a tough macro game for Serral. But for Serral, he's gotten everything he needs to be kind of okay for now, taking this damage, and that he's maxed out, 78 drones, 4 bases, you were saying. Of course, eventually he really does need a 5th, and he is going to get it. First, Biles might take this one out. But he also is getting technology, and that's what I wanted to highlight. Infestors are on the way. It's going to help with some of these multitasking. Lurkers are once again the option as well against the style of play. And when they're actually out, which they took forever to do so in Game 2, they will help against stuff exactly like this. Drop in the main base, going to actually target fire that Hydralisk Den. It looks like Serral, afraid he's going to lose the Hive, is already starting up a lair, by the way, in the picture-in-picture. The Lings are not going to be enough, and meanwhile, Cure sending more of his army off to the right side, scans ahead, likes what he sees. Marines pull back, Marauders tank the Banelings. He's going to take a good engagement over here, a great engagement, actually. Serral forced to retreat, pulls the drones, is slapped back down to 4 bases.
Absolutely, that is another expansion biting the dust here. The Hive did actually survive. Serral did go into the upgrade as well for the ranged on the Lurkers, but so far, Cure is doing a phenomenal job containing Serral on only 4 bases. Usually that's the task of the Zerg in this matchup, right? But Cure making sure that Serral's economy does not get completely out of control. I didn't really like how Serral was allowed to just get up to 4 bases pretty much uncontested, but at this point, I mean, things are looking up here for Cure.
Yeah, very, very reminiscent of game number 2. Cure once again going into the additional starports and looking for Liberators to be that immediate follow-up to all of this pressure. In that game 2, we saw the Liberators take longer than they wanted to actually get on the front lines, and when they did, they were perhaps placed without the proper protection. This time around, Cure might be already rallying Liberators forward. Nidus Swarm this time, absolutely real in the main base. We didn't see it, Cure didn't see it, and now Lurkers are there, but Liberators have popped out. He's gonna need to scan, obviously, and this is gonna be a problem, but Cure doesn't really want to panic right now, so he is gonna have to take some damage to his production for the greater good.
Absolutely. Raptors also decide to join in for a few corrosive vials on the lips. Not bad right there for Serral, but he is not going to be able to really, well, really, I'm surprised he doubled down here. I really didn't think he was going to be able to send more units across the Nidus network, but you know what? Those Lurkers are putting in a lot of work. Widowmines are out as well, though, but somehow, some way, 1 Lurker survived until now.
Yeah, another scan was necessary, but you know that was a lot of high-tech units for Serral to give away there, even though Cure also didn't clean that up immediately. So now that it has been cleaned up, he can focus back on the front. There was no secondary attack that Serral was able to do to catch Cure not multitasking. Cure had his army on the front lines, ready to go in a moment's notice. Now he's back to controlling it, right side as well, finding the drones, trying to reestablish that 5th base. This will be cleaned up on the right, but Cure is maxed out. He does have Liberators. He has settled on his now 5 bases again, actually, as the Nidus Swarm was cleaned up. He's even getting Caduceus Reactor, which I think is great. And I'm still very afraid for Serral if 6 Liberators show up where that left side army is. How does he really break that comfortably is a big question. He did so with a lunge in the previous version of this game, but can he do it again? Lurkers finding another opportunity outside of the main, this time at the 5th, but quick reaction from Cure.
Yep, scan is available too, so he's going to be able to push those Lurkers away for the time being. I really would love to see Cure continue this level of aggression up. What went wrong for him in the second game of the series is that at some point, Serral's counterattacks really started to hurt, and he had to, well, take a back step, right? He needed to make sure he slowed down a little bit. Nidus network right now goes down, though. Serral's desperately attempting to get this Terran player to back up and sit behind his command centers and his planetaries, but so far, I mean, that fungal growth is really good. The parasitic bomb also hurts a ton, but so far, Cure really is keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, barely saving that planetary off the left side as well. Liberator is able to take care of it with a couple of extra scans. We now have the range for Liberators on the way too, which is obviously going to help. Serral losing that Nidus network was really important. That is just such a good feeling for the Terran. It's like, okay, at least I have 30 seconds. But Serral was also very quick to replanting it, knowing how important it is that he has the ability to get across the map. He can't just be on the defensive against Liberators. As good as it looked in a very desperate scenario in previous games, it's not guaranteed that happens again. He's got to keep secure, also defending while trying to attack, controlling the perfect army against these siege units, these AoE units that are Lurkers. It looks like Cure is on top of things, though. He can go for a little bit of a split. Gonna try and take out 3 Lurkers, a very limited number of bio, little boxer right now going on. Can't take out the last one, but Serral, turns out he's thinking about maybe doing a main attack. Decides against it. Maybe he was hoping the army was out, not being paid attention to, but Cure has really settled on his 5 bases. Bio Liberator, very much his choice at this point. There's like he could afford a Ghost Academy. He is not going for it.
Now, one thing that Cure does need to find out is the base at the 3 o'clock position. Serral decided to go for the gold base. It is very easy for Cure to shut down, but he needs to see that it's there. If Serral is left to his own there for a while, I mean, the income is not to be underestimated, and he is really trying to force the attention of the Terran player away as far as possible from that particular expansion. Okay, not enough here for the Zerg to really fight it, although a parasitic bomb there on those clumped up Liberators is really going to hurt quite a bit. We also have a Nidus network again on the left side of the map, a Nidus network in the bottom right corner. Serral trying to get this Terran army to slow down.
Yeah, Liberators were heavily injured due to that parasitic bomb, and now only a couple or even 1 corrosive bile away from dying, but Hydras will also do the trick. It's literally 1 corrosive bile, but it's helping. Viper is making sure that the Liberators actually die. Cure suddenly losing really his Liberator army on the front lines, but still having a very fearsome bio army and being able to remax 6 Liberators at a time, showing how well Cure has been able to manage the defense of his economy. 6-7 SCVs, 5 bases, and extra orbital command, despite Serral's attempts to get the Nidus Worms over there, to get the Lurkers over there, to get the Lings over there. Serral really needs this to open up the opportunities to get bases. He
finally finds it.
Yeah, the gold base has really been quite nice for him to have this entire time, unscouted and unpressured.
I'm getting a flashback to the second game of this series now. It's usually very difficult for Zerg to stabilize from this particular spot, and I don't think Serral is feeling comfortable just yet. But this is looking a bit better than it did a few minutes ago. That being said, though, now that Cure knows about this gold base, he's going to be able to shut it down relatively quickly, or at the very least, contest the mining here. Okay, we'll see this drop getting cleaned up. There's a Liberator in the meantime, too, going to town on the other side of the map. A little Zergling bailing run-by. These run-bys are expensive, though. Looks like Serral wants to go after the SCVs and the Planetary Fortress, too. He is still at a maxed-out state, but that was not cheap.
No, it isn't. Cure is going to be on 5 bases with the middle right base too, and maybe he does just try and take the left one with an orbital, which is obviously not going to be well defended, but sometimes when the game gets really hectic, you can get away with it. Wouldn't mind splinting around, getting a little bit of scouting is also nice. Liberator army once again being rebuilt, and here it is on the front lines. There's a lot of Liberators with more to come. Lurkers have to get the heck out of there. Serral plants down a Spire, but it's going to be a long while before we can actually add on Corruptors.
Absolutely. There is a Spore Crawler, though, and there are some Hydras, but look at the spread right now. Those Liberators, they now have their ranged upgrade, and suddenly it becomes incredibly difficult for the Zerg to engage here. Great push for Cure. In the meantime, though, Serral has re-expended 2 bases on the left. I really hope here for Cure that he can snipe that base, and indeed he does force the cancel in the picture-in-picture. Great work right there by the South Korean Terran player, who's going to continuously be aggressive as he moves those units into the main base.
Nice reaction with Liberators once again. Lurker is not able to find some free damage there. Medivacs will be taken down, but this drop's still going to be very annoying. Serral not able to take on the Liberator army is, continuing to just have to defend. He is grabbing Lunge once again, and that Spire is close to completion. Looks like the spawning pool was targeted, so he remade that or prepared for it to be targeted. Not sure which one. No, okay, he's just going to have 2. All right, fair enough. No, he's going to have 3.
He's getting a third, yeah, he's getting a third. Liberators, though, are setting up a giant spot on the middle of the map, and Serral cannot engage there until Corruptors are out or until maybe the Lunge ability gives them an opportunity to immediately close the distance. Cure can sort of, slow push, right? Like what he did in the previous game with Siege Tanks. He can sort of do that right now as well with Liberators. Needs to be careful, though, that he does not get overwhelmed once more, because Liberators are constantly under threat, especially of the Vipers. The Vipers can keep fishing away as many units as possible. A little hit squad on the left does get cleaned up by Serral, who's gonna now go in for the counterattack once again.
Yeah, I also want to mention Cure only on 3-3, which is great for his bio, obviously, but never went into any of the ship weapon or the armor. I wonder if that's something he is purposely doing, or just, the game has been too action-packed. Either way, making sure to replace the Medivacs, which sometimes, Terran players, you start building other stuff. Medevac count gets a little too low. Love that he's paying attention to that with the Caduceus Reactor, making sure that they have plenty of energy, because this is a sustained damage, actually, army from Serral with Lurkers, right? So you can take a couple of hits and go, okay, it's hitting me, I need to pull back. Unlike Banelings, which are kind of like, if they connect, you're dead. So love that he's paying attention to the appropriate air balance. 9 Medivacs, 12 Liberators, 25 Marauders. Really tanky army here. But in the last 30 seconds, Serral has managed to find some bit of map control. He's taking the left side of the map, actually, with the base there. But that is now where Cure is directing his engagement. Not going to tackle this when his Liberators are not sieged up. Does split that off. Nice use of the rocks as well to buy himself a little more time. But the siege hop will happen eventually when Cure has the time to do it. He's now actually going for a big old bio push, and that is going to be a killed hatchery. And the bio's like, yeah, that's good enough. We're okay with that. And it's going to run away. Might even get this one on the gold base again.
I wonder if Cure is once more getting a little carried away, though, because he's not rebuilding any workers. Much like he did in the previous game, he's now saying, okay, army it is, and we go, go, go. That does mean, though, that you are setting yourself up for a kill move within the next few minutes. As Serral has proven time and time again that he's incredibly good at holding such attacks. Still, though, this Terran army is not to be underestimated. Liberators are indeed setting themselves up. Viper goes down. If he could get the second Viper, that would be amazing. Serral still has a lot of energy, though, on others available. He does give up on the hatchery on the left side of the map, but does clean up the army on the right. Okay, Serral's economy now also plummets down. A couple Lurkers in for the counterattack. That's sweet, but how do you deal with those Liberators? Those Liberators are so powerful.
You either need time to steadily abduct one after another. You need that one moment like in game 2 where you can just overwhelm in the blink of an eye, and Kira is making sure that does not happen. His Liberators are injured. They have been reduced in the count, but he has just taken down 2 pretty important mining bases. Serral's out of mining on his original 4. He doesn't have a 5th reestablished. Kira not in a terribly better situation, by the way, as this 5th base has been denied mining many a times. This base off to the left side has only just been planted, and yes, he never really remade those SCVs. The planetary, in fact, does go down to the crackling, so that is very, very efficient. This orbital can lift, but the SCVs cannot. They're in a lot of trouble. We see that we are at a very similar supply. Serral down about 10 army supply, but the spellcaster usage, which unfortunately the missile turret was there, the spellcaster usage from Serral could really change this game around.
Serral desperately trying to get a new base up and running, where you can see that he is feeling the heat in this game so far. Cure is doing a good job defending most of these outer angles, but still, every time the lurkers find something, right? They just annoy the Terran, and if anything, it's a very APM-intensive defense right there for Cure, who has to now let go of the pressure. Both players now rebuilding, though, and neither of them brave enough to really add on additional workers. So we're gonna get into a situation where, even though there are still a lot of minerals available on the map, we're gonna see massive armies. Both players aiming for about 160, 170 total army supply. Serral makes 1 drone, but immediately thinks better of it and goes back to Hydras.
Yeah, this is obviously much worse for the Zerg. Kira does still have orbital command slapping down mules. Whereas Serral, I mean, even if he does have bases that can actually saturate, which he only just recently got with the 5th base, that's where the minerals are. It's only 36 drones. So a 2nd base, not gonna be fully saturated. Well, I guess technically, depending on the gases, I suppose. But anyway, Serral is just not going to have a lot of money. All right, so the spellcaster usage is going to have to be absolutely fantastic. It is an army that can take a very good trades in ideal situations.
Oh, careful.
And, well, there you go. A lot of Marauders being torn down is a nice start to that fight, but Serral is going to need more as the drop heads into the main base, threatens a lot of technology there. Liberators are injured from earlier battles. A couple of parasitic bombs actually even taking them down. Serral has to whittle away. Well, Cure maybe could go for more reinforcements. That's actually disappearing as well, as 2 of his bases are under attack. 17 SCVs going down. Lurkers finding that damage. Cure, also on his last army, pushing through here. Thinks he has an opportunity. Goes for a couple of those lurkers. 3 of them do go down despite the blinding cloud, and he still has 3 live zones that are really helping in this choke.
Absolutely, the Bio Army's trying to close in on that expansion, and he does indeed complete the job, as the final mining base, at least on the right side of the map, does end up falling. There's another one here on the left. Serral looks like he is going to be able to prevent this drop from dealing additional damage. The problem here, though, is that while all of this was going on, Cure has taken a ton of damage on the other side of the map. He's now down to only 9 SCVs. This orbital command is slowly burning down too. He needs to catch that before it completely disappears. And I mean, look at the amount of health it's losing in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It is, okay, getting repaired as Cure does spot it in time.
Yeah, you know, when it's 30 SCVs versus 30 drones, we all give Terran the credit there. But 9 SCVs even with mules, and you need the scans for the lurkers, that's a very different story. Serral has managed to whittle down the army and eventually deliver a real killing blow to Cure's economy. And he might just be taking this game, despite how back and forth it was, despite how close it was to Serral being broken. He got to the cost and efficient type of army and has used it very, very well. This might not be the moment to win, but Serral, you can tell, he sees the opportunity. Those Marauders are low, the medevacs are low, the fungal is fantastic, and that is going to be it. Serral takes the 4-0 and will advance on to the grand finals.
What a phenomenal set of games right there from Serral. None of these games have been easy. Honestly, every match in this entire tournament has been one he needs to fight for, but he is not somebody who will ever give up. Even if the opponent is ahead, he will still try to find a way to navigate his way back into a match, and this entire series is a proof of that once more. You can see that he's not all too happy with the win across the board, right? Probably would have liked to have a more dominant performance than that, but I mean, the ultimate scoreboard is a 4-0 win. These are the final moments here as Serral is abducting as many troops as possible, and yeah, it is a sight to behold. He's just so quick. He's dealing with all the aggression to the best of his abilities. That fungal growth right there to seal the deal was absolutely glorious. And you can see that Cure